Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today, Great.com talks with James Brown, who is the founder and president of Water for Life charity. We will also be talking with Carlos Iglesias, who is the secretary and the VP of field operation for the same organization. If you haven't heard of them yet, they are a nonprofit organization that drills wells and supplies water filters to developing countries lacking safe, clean drinking water. And just before we begin, if you're new here, remember to press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn about how important and how difficult it is to provide potable water. Hello, James. Hello, Carlos. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on.
Oh, our pleasure. Honestly, I was doing my research and I feel like I always say that, but it's true. I was really amazed by the work that you're doing. And I think I like to begin by learning about the story of how this organization began. Maybe you, James, that founded it, could give us an idea of how it all happened.
Absolutely. So I've been doing charity work with water for 10 years now, probably creeping up on 11 years. And in 2011, I met a guy named Rudy Schaefer. He was going to do some business work for me. He was going to do some sales. He'd actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm close to retiring. I'd love to do some sales for you, earn a little extra money. I've sold my businesses." And then he's like, "I want to retire." And I'm like, "Hey, sounds great, Rudy. Let's get together." Well, 2 or 3 months passed by and I don't hear from him. I call him back and I'm like, "Hey, Rudy, what's going on? I thought we were going to do some sales together and do some business engagement." And he said, "Look, I read a statistic that every 20 seconds a child dies from a waterborne disease." And he said, "I can't handle that anymore." And he's like, I'm going to retire now and I'm going to go out and help save lives." And I said, "Man, that's fantastic." Because ironically, growing up in the faith that I grew up in, I had been always thinking about like much is given where much is required, where much is given, much is required, right? And I always felt like I needed to be giving back more. And it was such a perfect timing for me because I was really contemplating and looking for some inspiration and praying for some insight and wisdom on what I could do more in my life to help people. Perfect crossing. And I felt like water was the perfect opportunity for me to engage in helping others. Because it's just, if you look at the needs of life, water is such a basic principle. I mean, you can go a month without food, but you can only go 3 days without water. And water affects so many aspects of people's lives that it was a perfect fit for me. And I became fascinated with water and researched and studied it. We researched filters and everything else. And then, so all along the way, I'd helped Rudy with his organization, which was called Water for Life Ministry. And then in 2017, I started Water for Life charity to serve a little bit different demographic of people that we feel like we were missing out on. And so I run that organization. And then Carlos, he and I met through a mutual friend. And Carlos came on board because I supplied him water filters that he took to Mali, Africa and Guatemala. And Carlos, you can explain your story and background. And I don't even know how many filters we've shipped through your service. And so he came on our board, became one of our directors, and man, we've loved having him on board. So go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah. So as James said, it was through a mutual friend. James and I are here in Utah. We have a mutual friend that lives in Idaho, and they connected us together. I had already been going to Mali, Africa, doing humanitarian work and providing just good hygiene, days for girls, kids, and then we bring doctors for eye surgeries and teeth extractions. And then James, when we finally met, he connected me with, he said, we provide these filters. Could you use that? I'm like, heck yeah, we could use clean water, right? Because we're dealing with villages and these families are just traveling, an hour or two to a well to go get water and then bring it back. And then who knows if they wash it, or boil it or purify the water. So and if they can't make it to the well, they just go find a pond or a river and go try to find some water. So but I've been doing that kind of work for years, and it's just been great. And this water filter through Water for Life charities has been basically a miracle sent, because it's so small. So, the budget is it's very affordable for us to get it out there. So it's been great, and we're excited.
Oh, I love to hear that. It's so inspirational. And I think this is what makes most things work in life, right? Some mutual friends, like a coincidence sometimes, it really gets things in motion. And when you spoke, Carlos, about your experience with communities that face this insecurity about water resources, I feel like whenever we think about, at least today, about water crisis, it's usually a thing from the past or a thing for the future, like we're going to get without water if we don't preserve. But we forget that it's still a very present situation, right? Can you tell us exactly what you're seeing concerning this crisis?
You speaking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm in Mali, Africa, or Guatemala, or even Mexico, if you're not in the center or the capital, or even if you are, you go out a mile or two, and the rest of the country is pretty much remote villages. And so people are getting water from a well, or from a river or a pond or a lake. And so it is other than the United States, well, even within the United States, there's areas where you need to be careful with water. But outside the United States, it is a problem today, and it's going to be a problem for years to come until all these communities get some type of infrastructure put in. But and that's almost impossible. You hate to say that, but so it is present. I see it every single day, and the lives that are being saved by just filtering this water is pretty incredible.
And Carlos brings up a really good point, that we hope that there's a solution, and if enough people band together and help some of the countries develop their infrastructure, that we can get there. But we really serve as a small organization, as a bridge. I don't know if you've ever heard of the last mile principle in telecommunications, but the last mile principle is that the service at the end of the last mile of these branches of the telecommunications is always the weakest. It's the weakest signal. And here we're serving the people in the areas with the weakest infrastructure, the least amount of resources. And until we can get large drilling rigs, which cost a lot of money, into a lot of these places and get the infrastructure built up, we have to serve these people. We have to be able to help them. And right now, if we can't keep a mom in her home working, or educating her kids, or getting kids in school, and a lot of times it's women and children, right, that are the most affected here. So if we can't keep them working and healthy, they spend their money on medical bills, or they lose a husband to a waterborne disease, or they're back and forth getting poorer and poorer with kids on the streets, getting hit by a car, getting lung diseases from the dust. I mean, water, it just is an exponential problem, and it can be reduced exponentially if we can get these people safe, clean drinking water in their villages, in their home. And one of the things, even we've seen corruption inside of villages where a mayor is like, yes, come drill this well right here on this piece of land. Well, that's his piece of land. And then he starts charging the villagers for it. However, the filters that we supply allow the people in these families to have access to their own independence. So they can go get their water, bring it to their home, filter it, and provide it for their own family. And that's where we feel like we're a bridge until that infrastructure gets there. We hope it comes soon, but at least we can bridge that gap for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a wonderful bridge, I would say. And I feel like this perspective that both of you are bringing now, they are crucial for us to understand the importance of this subject that we're talking here today, and the activities that you're developing. And considering that, a question for you, James, is I tried to summarize in our introduction here today your activities, but let's expand on that a little bit right now. And what exactly have you been doing? Especially, I'm super interested, I will not deny, about the water filter. I really anxious to talk about that.
Absolutely. So there's 5 core things that we do. Okay. And we fundraise, We source filters, we qualify recipients, we distribute the filters, and then we do training on the setup and follow-up of the filters themselves. So the maintenance, so that they'll last long. And that's the main thing that we do. And Rudy is a really great guy to help us with qualifying. And then Rudy and Carlos head out into the field. I have young kids still at home. So I'm now, as they're getting older and being teenagers, I'm able to head out on humanitarian trips. But Carlos and Rudy and multiple teams that we've sent out in the field really go out and do a good job. So one of the key things that we find is, fundraising is a hustle, and getting the filters, that takes a little bit of logistics, but qualifying the people to make sure that they're going to be good recipients and they're going to take care of the filters and they're going to use them and they're properly trained has probably been the hardest thing that we've come across. And Carlos has done a really good job of going into villages in Guatemala, speaking with the local leaders and saying, hey, we're going to sign a document that said we delivered a filter to you, right? We don't want to make this feel like, you've got to have an earning situation. And there's always this interesting dilemma of that. We've heard organizations say, well, we want to give a filter as a reward. And we've always felt like clean water is a basic human right. Like, we've got to get the filter there first so that they can have the chance to do other things, such as farming and running a business or taking care of the kids, educating their kids, like I've said before. So those are the 5 key things that we really work on. It's qualifying them, making sure the filters are going to be used so that when donors donate money, they know that they're dealing with a 100% volunteer organization, and that the filters are going direct to the people who need it, and that we have a system in place to get the filters to them. They don't land in some warehouse somewhere where somebody steals it and then they go sell the filter, whatever it might be. There's all kinds of things that can happen along the way. And so our obligation is to make sure that our donors' money gets to the people, and that the people we serve are properly trained on how to use this product. That will get to the point about the filter, but will last for years, and it'll filter thousands of gallons of water.
Well, thank you so much for expanding on that. It's actually one of my concerns today about the challenges you might face with this, because it does seem complicated to just deliver a piece of equipment and just leave it there, and both in terms of the safety of it, but also the point where the communities will take it in and understand that it's theirs, right? And how exactly does this Water for Life filter work? Because we're talking about it, but I think it would be nice to have our listeners understand a bit better how it works.
Absolutely. So it's really just a single filter that is the size of your fist. Okay. It weighs about 3 ounces, and we can fit 50 of these filter kits inside of duffel bag. And Carlos has probably taken 5 or 10 of these duffel bags to multiple countries. And the filter is gravity fed. So you have a 2-bucket system basically. And we just have standard 5-gallon buckets. The larger the bucket, the better, because you have better flow rate, right? And it just hooks on the front of a bucket, and it's gravity fed. You have a little clip on the front that stops the flow, or you can hook it up to the top of the bucket like this and it'll stop the flow. But we'll get 5 to 7 gallons of water per hour, which you can have over 10-hour period, 50 to 60 gallons of clean water, which will take care of a family of 10. And it'll remove 99.9% of all the bacteria. And I have kind of a little list of, like, we have within bacteria, you're talking about salmonella, cholera, and E. coli, protozoas, giardia, cysts, malaria, and other diarrhea causing diseases, right? So as long as we can pre-filter it a little bit and get the rocks and the sediment out, which actually our organization has just developed a pre-filter that's made out of a 5-micron nylon mesh that we filed a patent for, and we're going to be building prototypes now, and then we're going to be sending these out with our filter kits. We filter out the sediment first, because some of the places that the people are getting their water from, and Carlos can attest to this, that they're full of moss, dirt, feces, leaves, rocks, whatever. I mean, they're getting their water from whatever places they can find it. And on our website, you can see all kinds of situations where the kids are just getting water out of a borehole that's next to camp, and they're drinking the water right out of it. We've got to eliminate that, right? So we've designed this pre-filter to get rid of the rocks and sediment. And then we've got this amazing filter that will get rid of 99.9% of all the bacteria.
This is just truly amazing. I loved to see all of this. And to everyone listening, you didn't get to see because James just showed us the filter, but you can go to their website, as he said. The links are provided here on the description of this episode. The link is waterforlifecharity.org. And you can go there and you check this. It's really simple. It's actually beautiful to see. And you can see for some of their YouTube videos to show how it works truly. And Carlos, a question for you now, because I was wondering here as we spoke, because we mentioned, actually you brought to us some of your experiences, but I feel like you have a broader understanding also of all the projects that you have delivered those filters or actually sent some supply to.
Yeah, so let me go back a little bit to what James was saying real quick. You know, people wonder, why are you filtering wells? Well, not all wells are built the same. You know, it's funny because when you imagine as a person in the United States that a well, okay, there's a hole and there's a nice, cover and it gets pumped. And well, in most of Mali, the wells that we encounter are just a big hole. Maybe they have a block wall around them, but there's really nothing that seals it on the top. So there's, anything can go in there, flies, bugs, but more than anything, we've encountered, where there's dead animals that are in the bottom of these wells. And so that water has to be filtered. Even if it looks crystal clear to your eye, it's not clean. And that's where we get a lot of communities where these communities think, hey man, we got a well and it's clean water. You can look at it. And yet all the kids are getting really sick. Mothers are getting really sick because it's full of bacteria. They just don't know it. And the sad thing is, for example, one of our connections in Mali, Africa, he lost his son, a 2.5-year-old son that fell in a well because they're just open. And they were just out in the garden, watering the garden, and the well was in the garden. Mom didn't pay attention for one moment and there it went. So the need for clean water is huge. A couple other things James said, and if that's okay, Danielle, let me just share a couple other thoughts.
Go for it, yeah.
When James says that it's 100% volunteer, it is. As you can see on the video, I'm at work. I'm working full time. James is at his home office, works full time. And this is truly a labor of love. So we're excited to do this. So the qualifying process is a little, we take our time to make sure that we know that these filters are getting to the right people and they're being used to save lives, not to be resold or, to sit on a shelf or something like that. Okay, cool thing. Going to some of these villages, you'll have a 4-room school or a 10-room school, or maybe just a 1-room school with an office for the administrator. What's really cool is when we'll put these filter kits in one of the classrooms, and the filter that James showed has threads on the bottom. And those threads, you could just take a bottle of water and thread it on there, and the kids can come. So grab it. They all store plastic bottles because if they find one, it's like gold because they can carry water. So they'll have them with them in class, and they'll just run up to the filter, screw it onto the bottom of the filter, and let that water, and they get to see their own clean water come out. So that's really, really, really cool. Obviously, when we're there, we try to bring other things like educational kits, gifts for the kids. We'll have games. We'll do all kinds of other things. But our main focus is clean water to save lives. And it's amazing the impact and to watch. Danielle, if you can ever see, and I don't know if we have a video, but if you can ever see these people, when they take this water and they look like this dirty water and it's coming out crystal clear, it's amazing because they're like, no, that's magic. That's not real. And then I'm getting ready to drink it. And then they're like, no. And I drink it and it's amazing. It's like, Well, I've been drinking it for years, so I'm still alive, pretty healthy. I'm not glowing, so I think we're good. The filters are great. So maybe that's a little bit of the experiences we share, we experience out there. So.
Wow, it must be something that you gotta be there to see.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because it's something that we cannot just, imagine out of the. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And, as Rudy tells a story that in Kenya, when we first brought the filters to the kids in Kenya, they were afraid of the clean water. They had never seen anything that wasn't yellowish brown. So their whole lives, they had been drinking dirty water. And there's some statistics out there that kids in those foreign countries and developing countries will have, 1,000 parasites just living, and they constantly live with diarrhea and other problems that result in early death and other things. So it's amazing to see the videos come back where there's kids who are drinking clean water and they know it's going to keep them healthy.
Oh, it's amazing. I gotta say that it's heartwarming just to hear it. I've got to say that. And
Well,
guys, my last question for you today is, how can people help you keep going? This is a wonderful project.
Well, look, honestly, I've got a quote here that inspired me when I first started working on this, and it was from Martin Luther King. I was standing in my friend's kitchen when I saw this, when it all started, everything. And it said, every person must decide at some point whether they walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. This is the judgment. Life's most pressing and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And then he also said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And so the first thing for us is to like find that light within you. And I know I've listened to a lot of you guys' podcasts, and it's whether you're cleaning out rivers or addressing domestic violence, whatever it might be, it's key to find that feeling that goes along with service. And there's just a great altruistic feeling that comes along with helping others. And that is the first step, we believe. Then the second step, if you could get involved with donations are always awesome at waterforlife.org. We're currently running a huge campaign for Ukraine, and that whenever this posts, we know that over 12 million refugees have come into place, and over 6 million of those refugees don't have access to clean water. And it's just getting worse. 90% of the infrastructure, according to the Wall Street Journal, has been destroyed in multiple eastern cities within Ukraine. So now we have this global crisis where there's 700 million people. And even the statistic of a kid dying every 20 seconds has moved to a kid dying every 2 minutes. There is a slight improvement, but now we've added 6 more million refugees. And anytime people can donate funds, that is amazing. Anytime people can donate volunteer work, we also help qualified missions or organizations that are going to these countries, and we're happy to supply our filters, or they're happy to have them purchase the filters from us. It's a nonprofit, obviously, and a registered 501c3, but we try to create a sustainability model. All right. So if people can purchase them from us, that's great. If they can't afford, we'll help donate. So with that, I would say any type of donations or volunteerism will help. Or if you've got resources in those countries, we're happy to make those connections and happy to develop. Anytime we can find a great team in another country that becomes a great partner, we love that as well. Carlos, anything else?
No, I heard something years ago, and it just is so true. It's there's nothing greater than the heart of a volunteer, and volunteering, whether you're going on one of these trips to help us, or you're volunteering by donating your services or funds to help us, that would be fantastic. And I promise you, I would never gotten with James if I knew that this was an organization where there was pay. We got to get these funds 100% to the people, that are in need. And we've been able to do that. And we think we can sustain that. There will be some overall costs, purchase bags to get them over to these countries. But yes, please open up your heart and donate.
Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. This was a wonderful talk. I loved it. And
you're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Because we know you have a full-time job too, right? And you're volunteering your time to help the podcast and bringing the light of what everybody else is doing to the world. So thank you so much. You're amazing.
Thank you. We are very
Thank you,
proud of
Danielle.
doing this work. Thank you so much, Carlos. It's actually something that we're truly proud of doing. And well, this was wonderful talk. And for everyone else listening, thank you so much as well. And if you enjoyed this episode, remember to press subscribe on YouTube or in a podcast app, because that shows the algorithm that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the Water for Life charity organization.